I stood in the middle of my all-you-can-eat restaurant and felt like crying. I'd spent my life savings and trained for 5 years in culinary school, but 7 days in my dining hall was empty. The Kung Pao chicken I'd spent years perfecting sat untouched, and I dropped to my knees. But then, a 300-pound man walked in. He grabbed one of everything, and my face lit up because I finally had a real customer. But then I looked closer, and instantly got ready to fight him. He was adding his own herbs and spices to my food. I instantly stormed over and asked why he was changing my Kung Pao, but he stared at me like it was obvious. Because your original recipe tastes like dog shit left to bake in the sun, but with a few tweaks of my own, it's delicious. My jaw dropped, and I went to escort him out, but he shoved a spoon of my own dish into my mouth before I could say a word. I nearly gagged, and my hands shook in horror because I realized the recipe I'd worked on for so long was actually a crime against taste buds. Now try mine. He shoved a second spoon in my mouth, and my eyes glowed like in that one Ratatouille scene. This is incredible. I know. He walked to the entrance door, flipping the sign around to closed. We're turning this restaurant around. For the next 5 hours, I watched him refry my wings, re-season my fish, cross entire items off the menu, and call the recipes I'd spent 2 years on prison food. When he was done, I asked him if he was a chef, but he just twirled his fork. Nah, I'm just a fat guy who loves food. The next morning, I opened the restaurant, and at lunch, I watched my second ever customer take a bite of the Kung Pao. He nearly fell out of his chair and immediately went back for more. That evening, my restaurant was full, and Joe stood in my kitchen, eating the Kung Pao chicken, now as my head chef and co-owner of the restaurant. He saved my business, so giving him half was the least I could do. I walked into class early and saw Elliot at Ms. Worley's desk pouring something clear and sharp smelling into her water bottle. When he saw me, he slowly pulled his hoodie open so I could see the weapon on his hip. I sat down and stared at the board while other kids filed in and thought about what he would do if I opened my mouth. Ms. Worley walked in smiling. "Good morning, everyone." She reached for the bottle and my hand shot up. "Can I get a bathroom pass?" She sighed. "We just started. I really can't wait." She waved me out, but the only way to the office was past the window in the classroom door where Elliot would see me, so I went back inside and sat down. I had to warn her from inside the room somehow. Ms. Worley reached for the bottle again, so I knocked my entire binder off my desk. Papers flew everywhere and half the class turned around. She set the bottle down. "Everything okay back there?" I apologized and picked up my papers slowly. When I sat back up, Elliot was staring straight at me. I tore a small piece of paper out of my notebook and wrote with shaking hands, "Do not drink the water." Elliot poured something into it, and he has a weapon. I pressed it into the hand of the girl ahead of me. "Ms. Worley only. Don't make it obvious, please." She looked at my face and saw how scared I was. She waited until Ms. Worley walked past and slipped it to her low. Ms. Worley palmed it without stopping, and when she reached the front of the room, she glanced at it and froze. After a few moments, she picked up her phone. "Sorry, I have to take this call." Her voice was so steady, I almost didn't believe she had read it yet. She walked out, and the second the door shut, I watched Elliot's hand move to his bag. Then the fire alarm screamed, and Ms. Worley's voice came over the intercom. "Everyone out the back right now." We all ran out into the parking lot, and 30 seconds later, Elliot's voice came through the back doors. "Get off me! She deserved it!" The police brought him out in handcuffs and put him in a cop car as everyone watched. I finally took a breath. A detective sat me down on the curb, and after I told him everything I saw and did, he closed his notebook. "You saved her life today." My nephew shoved my daughter to the ground and swung at the piñata that was set up for her 7th birthday. While she cried her eyes out, he calmly collected all the candy that fell out, ignoring all the adults cursing at him. His brand new white sneakers stepped over the smaller kids for the 4th year in a row, and he smoothed his fresh haircut like a trophy. My daughter pushed herself up off the grass and came to stand behind my leg while looking straight down. My hands were shaking with anger, but I reminded myself, he's just a kid. So I brought out the second piñata, the big gold one I'd built myself. But instead of candy, it was filled with something else, something that would teach him a lesson. We started singing Happy Birthday again, and my daughter stepped up with the little bat, but he ripped it out of her hands again. "Move, you're too small, you'll miss." She turned to me for help, but I nodded to let him have it, because I knew it was only a matter of time before he regretted what he did to my daughter. He shoved his sleeves up, planted his feet, and wound up huge while every parent stared at me like I'd lost my mind. One mom leaned in and whispered, "Aren't you going to stop him?" But I knew something she didn't. He swung, clipped the corner, and the gold piñata jerked hard on the rope but held its shape. I breathed a sigh of relief, because my plan was only going to work if he swung again, and now he was finally going to learn his lesson. But suddenly, he tossed the bat in the grass and started to walk off, and my whole plan almost left with him, until one of the little kids giggled, "Ha ha, he couldn't do it!" And he immediately spun back around faster than the speed of sound. He snatched up the bat and snarled, "I could have cracked it already." already. I was just holding back. He reared back and swung with everything he had, and the bat punched clean through, splitting the whole thing open over his head. But there was never candy in there. I'd packed it with 8 pounds of flour and a bag of pink glitter, and it all came down at once over the fresh haircut, the collar, and those white sneakers he wouldn't stop bragging about. He stood there caked head to toe, spitting flour while every kid screamed laughing at the big cousin, and ran off screaming to his mom. The candy he'd hoarded all afternoon spilling out of his pockets into the flour. My daughter walked over, scooped a handful out of the flour, and held it up over her head like the trophy he thought it was. I was at the mall on a first date, browsing the jewelry store, when the security alarms started blaring and cops circled around me. "We know you're stealing, kid." I froze, already shaking because I'd spent a month working up the nerve to ask her out, and now I looked like a criminal. "But I didn't take anything." "Who said that?" The cop pointed across the store. "That guy," I gasped. There stood her ex-boyfriend Victor, arms crossed. He yelled, "I watched him from over here. He slipped a ring right into his pocket. Arrest him." I knew he was trying to sabotage my date, and I had to prove it before they hauled me out in cuffs. The cops leaned in closer, but the girl grabbed my arm. "You didn't take anything, right?" "I don't date criminals." I shook my head fast, but Victor cut in. "Cops, check his back pocket." My cheeks clenched as a cop reached into my back pocket, certain Victor was bluffing, but he pulled out a sparkling diamond ring with a $10,000 price tag. I panicked. "No, no, no! I don't know how that got there." The girl put her hands over her mouth and stepped back as Victor swooped in and slid his arm around her with a smirk. "What a loser. I would never steal anything. I would just buy you a diamond ring myself." The store owner stormed over, red-faced. "That's an exclusive $10,000 ring. I want him arrested for shoplifting now." A cop yanked my arms behind me, cuffs clicking cold around my tiny wrists, and as they dragged me past Victor, he leaned in and whispered, "That was too easy. Enjoy jail, loser." They started dragging me towards the exit, and I knew I needed to say something before my life was over. So I dug my heels in and screamed, "Wait! I know he framed me. He put that ring in my pocket." The cops didn't believe me and kept pushing, so I yelled, "How did he know it was in my back pocket if he saw me from all the way across the store?" Victor's smirk dropped. The cops stopped, turned, and stared at him. "Don't look at me! He's the thief!" throwing his hands up. But as his arms flew up, a diamond ring tumbled out of his sleeve and bounced across the floor, its price tag still attached. The whole store went silent, and then the cops lunged, cuffing Victor as he screamed that he didn't do it. The cuffs clicked off my wrists, and I could finally breathe as the girl stepped over the ring on the floor. That was hot. "When's our next date?" I flew to Japan for a trivia game show, but when I walked out on stage, there was no podium, just a sumo ring. I pulled up the email, and my heart sank, because my translation app had gotten one word wrong, and now I was stuck here. I shook my head and yelled, "No way I'm fighting sumo!" Then the host shouted into his mic, and my app read it out. "Survive 60 seconds against our undefeated champion. Win $10,000. Wait, you said $10,000? I'd spent my last savings on the flight, so I wiped my eyes and let them wrap me into a sumo diaper. The lights dropped, and the avalanche walked out. He was 400 pounds, slapping his belly twice and roaring with his eyes squeezed shut, while the whole crowd screamed with him. I stood there in my crooked diaper and cried even more, thinking I was about to die to a man who closes his eyes to celebrate. The bell rang, and his first charge launched me into the front row. But the clock was still running, so 3 grandmas shoved me back in. So I ran in circles just trying to escape while the crowd howled. But then I noticed something. Every time he closed in to finish me, he stopped and celebrated first. 2 slaps, the roar, eyes squeezed shut. So I stopped running, because for 2 whole seconds, the biggest man in Japan couldn't see me. The clock hit 20 seconds, the crowd started chanting for me, and the avalanche's face went dark red. He backed all the way up, and the host screamed, "Nobody has ever survived the final charge." My heart was slamming, because 1 second early, and he'd open his eyes and flatten me. He slapped his belly twice, roared with his eyes squeezed shut, and charged. I stepped sideways. 400 pounds of showboat thundered past me, and out of the ring, one giant foot slamming into the clay. The buzzer sounded. The building went silent, and the host grabbed my arm and screamed, "Ring out!" The avalanche sat there blinking, because the only match he'd ever lost, he lost with his eyes closed. They handed me a giant check, so I typed, "Thank you for having me" on my phone. But what my app said into the mic was, "I'll be back next week." The crowd went insane, and the host booked the rematch before I could type another word. Now I fight sumo wrestlers every Friday night, and I still don't know how to say no in Japanese. I finished my 500th push-up and stood up, finally ready to beat my dad. I walked into the kitchen and saw him at the head of the table, and Mom flinched as she set down his plate. His face twisted the second he took a bite. "Not enough salt." He immediately slapped her. She fell to the floor, locking eyes with me in tears, but Dad just stood up and leaned over her, clenching his fists. "What did I tell you about learning to cook?" He went to swing at her, but I jumped in and pushed him off, my heart pounding. I screamed, "Get off her, Dad. I'm challenging you to an arm wrestle. If you lose, you're not the strongest man in this house, and you leave leave me and Mom forever." He instantly started laughing. "You think you can beat me? Remember the last time you tried and lost? I whooped you afterward so bad you couldn't sit for a week." He sat in his chair and slammed his elbow on the table, opening his hand with a grin. My heart pounded, but I sat across from him and gripped his hand. My whole arm tensed, and I locked eyes with Mom. "I got us." We started, and his hand pushed against mine, but I grit my teeth and pushed back, thinking of all my training. And suddenly, I felt his arm give. The smile disappeared from his face, and he strained so hard he went red, but his hand was now inches from the table. Mom covered her mouth, but just as I was about to give the final push to win, Dad reached his free hand out and grabbed the knife off the table. He pressed the tip against my neck. "Are you sure you want to win?" My blood instantly ran cold as the sharp metal rested against my carotid artery. The fight drained out of my arm, and I let his hand drive mine down into the table. I instantly stood up, backing away from the knife as my whole body shook, hugging Mom, who was also shaking. Dad set the knife down and leaned back in his chair. "You're gonna have to kill me to get rid of me." He went back to eating, and that's when I grabbed the knife and drove it into his chest. I was getting rid of him. I was defending a robbery case in court when I stood up and said, "Your Honor, my client is definitely guilty." The courtroom erupted in laughter. Someone yelled, "What is this lawyer saying?" And my client's head snapped towards me. I was sweating buckets because there was only one explanation. That morning, my stupid son had blown out his birthday candles and wished for just one thing. My dad can't lie for the whole day. And now, because of that stupid wish, I was going to lose this case and end up jobless unless I somehow saved my reputation. The judge leaned forward. "Counselor, would you like to rephrase that?" I opened my mouth to fix it, but what came out was, "No, Your Honor, he did all of it." My client yanked my sleeve and whispered, "Fix this, or else." My jaw clenched harder and harder every second. But then I got a brilliant idea. I call my own client to the stand. He walked up smiling because we'd planned to feed him easy questions. So I looked him in the eye and asked the first question, "Where were you that night?" He leaned into the mic all relaxed. "At home, sleeping, like I told the cops." But my mouth suddenly interrupted. "No, you weren't. You told me you were at the jewelry store where the robbery took place." The courtroom laughed again, and he gripped the stand. "Whose side are you on?" "Yours. That's the sad part." I clamped both hands over my mouth, and tears fell through my eyes. I leaned in for my last question. "You cracked that vault in 4 minutes all by yourself, right?" That's when my client shocked everyone and shot up so fast his chair flipped. "4? No, that's wrong. 3 minutes. I cracked the vault in 3 minutes. Put some respect on my name." The whole courtroom froze, and even the judge's mouth fell open. My client slapped a hand over his own mouth. That's when it hit me. My son's wish had somehow rubbed off on him. The officers grabbed him, and as they dragged him out, he yelled, "It was a Class 4 vault. Put that in the record." The doors slammed, and the judge slowly took off his glasses and looked right at me. In 30 years, I've never known anyone pull the truth out of a man like that. "You're the best lawyer I've ever seen." The gallery broke into applause, and the prosecutor slid me his card. "Call me if you need a job." I stood there grinning, because my son's wish had both destroyed and saved my reputation. I was stuffing my trash bag into the chute when my fat landlord appeared out of nowhere. "All garbage must be triple bagged. You will be fined $400 per bag." I crossed my arms because we both knew that was BS, and I knew exactly why he was targeting me. "You've been writing me up every week since my girlfriend Amelia moved in, and she tells me you check her out all the time. You're being petty and jealous, so I'm not paying a dime." He clicked his pen. "We're up to a $500 fine. Arguing with management is a violation." I laughed because I wasn't about to let myself be intimidated by a man built like Danny DeVito, but he turned red, slammed the trash room door open, and pointed at my apartment door. "That's an unapproved doormat. $200 fine. The $1,400 payment is due next week." I locked eyes with him and started throwing the trash bags down the chute. "Oops, forgot to triple bag them. Oh well." He snapped the pad shut and stomped his foot on the floor. "You know what? Amelia doesn't deserve you." I took out my phone. "Oh really? I had no idea. I'll let her know right now." I called her to come to the trash room, and as soon as she walked in, the fat man started sweating nervously. "Greetings, Miss Amelia." Her hand interlocked with mine. "What's going on, babe?" I spoke nonchalantly. "The landlord is fining us $1,900 for not triple bagging our garbage bags and for having an unregistered doormat. He thinks you're not good enough for me. What do you think, babe?" The fat man tugged at his collar, and Amelia tilted her head. "Wait, I know you. You're the guy who takes the treadmill next to mine when the whole gym is empty. I see you everywhere. I told you to leave me alone." She jabbed a finger at him. "You're a creep." The Oompa Loompa looked so angry I thought smoke was going to come out of his ears. "Everything doubles. $3,800 fine." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "We can't afford that." For the first time all day, I stopped finding the situation funny, but he smiled at her, crying, "Should have thought about that before you rejected me." Amelia wiped her face and walked at him with her fists clenched. He backpedaled and tripped on a piece of trash, and as he stumbled backwards, I reached past his shoulder and pulled the flap open. He caught the frame and his chubby legs kicked over the drop, and as he fell, I leaned into the shaft. "Should have triple bagged yourself. That's a $400 fine. I guess we're even." I slammed the flap shut like I was closing his file. smile. As we walked out, I was already looking for a new place to live. Worth it. I made one wrong move with my pickaxe, and the entire cave started to collapse around me. I was trying to recreate Minecraft game IRL, but at this moment, I realized that real life doesn't have respawn. I ran back toward the light of the exit. I was nearly there when a giant boulder fell from the ceiling. It grazed my nose as it crashed to the ground. I stopped myself just centimeters away from death. The exit was completely blocked. More stones started to fall, and I was forced to run deeper into the cave. When the dust finally settled, I had no idea where I was. I had no map and no light except for my cell phone. I checked the battery, 5%. I had to find a way out, and fast. I walked deeper into the cave, searching for anything. My battery was at 3%. I had maybe 10 more minutes of light before I would die in complete darkness. To my shock, I found the body of a dead miner. He was wearing a backpack. Well, whatever's in there, I need it more than him. Inside was a lighter and 3 candles. Perfect. This buys me maybe an hour of light. I lit the first candle and tried to retrace my steps back to the entrance to figure out a plan. By the time I reached it, the first candle was burned out. I lit the second one, but a drop of cave water splashed down and put it out instantly. It wouldn't relight. I had one more candle in the bag, one chance to make something happen. I lit the third candle. The wick started burning fast and hot. Unlike the other candles, this one had 3 letters written on the side, TNT. This was no candle, this was dynamite, and the wick was burning up quickly. I tossed it at the boulder in front of the entrance and dove behind a stalagmite. I counted 3, 2, 1. The sound of thunder filled the cave with a blinding flash, and after the rock settled, I climbed out into the warm sunlight and said to myself, just like the video game.